just feel so happy.
I know. Susan Lee is magic. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, definitely magic. My new K-drama, K-pop queen, my writing queen, my army queen. By the way, I think you were a bit lost then. Hashtag army. It's like what the BTS like stands go. Do you call it stands when you're like super into something? Am I old? I'm old.
We're the BTS army.
BTS army. Yeah, because there's so many of us and we're mighty.
Ah, yes. I wouldn't mess with anybody that stands BTS.
And yet you dared to challenge me to draft race and you won. And you won. Damn it.
I sure did. But yeah, we did it. We finished our draft race. We both won in spirit, though I actually did really win. But I mean, I'm not like bragging, but I did win.
You won. You won.
I honestly did not expect to finish that fast.
Yeah.
I don't know if I didn't expect to get to the end that fast.
Same.
But I just wrote myself to the end.
Yeah. Honestly, the whole time I was like, I don't think like this probably won't happen, but let's keep doing it anyway. And then you'd be like, oh yeah, bitch, it got another, like I'm at 40K now. I was like, fuck, I was ahead of her before. And I'd be like, all right, quick, I'm going to just catch up. And like bit by bit, I was like, they reached a point, I think at like 50, 45K. And I was just like, this could happen. Like we could have books. And once I saw you really take off, like I was just like aware that you have edits coming as well. And I was just like, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's crack out a draft and see what happens. And I honestly couldn't be more delighted that we both cracked out these books.
I know. I think that was it. It was so fun to just talk shit to each other and just like throw everything out the window and just write.
Yeah.
And it was fun. This is the most fun I've had writing in forever because it was just like no pressure. I mean, pressure to beat you, but no pressure to do anything else. Yeah. And it was really, really fun. And so from now on, this is how I'm going to have to draft is just by fighting you.
Yes. Honestly, I'm here for it. And I think that, I don't know for you, but I feel like we had so much fun battling each other. We forgot to be afraid of all the reasons why we can't write this next book. There's probably like a million reasons for both of us why it would be daunting to write these books that we did. And we just fucking slayed it anyway. And I suddenly just got emotional for us. I'm really hormonal, okay? I've got my period. We should never record when I have my period. I cry on the drop of a hat. But I really am proud. Like, I'm so proud and relieved. And I know like that whole second book thing, like for me, the After Pitch Wars book thing. And like, yeah, we did it. We fucking did it, Angela Montoya.
We did it, bitch. We did it. And in our interview today with Susan Lee, like something she said really, it clicked, just it needs to bring you joy. And if it's not bringing you joy, maybe we need to kind of rethink some things. And so I think for us, we had to rethink and rework how we were drafting, because before for me, it wasn't fun. It wasn't joyful. It was work. And I can't work that way. I'm realizing, it's like I started writing to bring something out of me and to bring life into me. And when you kind of like go through your first book and then you're working on something new and you've done all these things, sometimes it's so easy to lose that joy and the fun. And so shifting, and I think Susan even mentioned that, and you even mentioned that, pivoting and looking for a new way, really did open up so much. And I know our drafts are rough. I know yours is probably great. Mine is like a hot dumpster fire mess.
I seriously doubt that. You're always so hard on your drafts, and every snippet I've ever read at any point is beautiful. You're always so hard on your drafts.
Thanks. I appreciate that. But it's okay. Yes, thank you.
Work. It's crazy. Like it is literally the diamond in the dirt. It is no less valuable and beautiful, but we've got to chip it out of the dirt right now. They're both diamonds in the dirt, but we've got to celebrate the diamonds they are as well.
Yes. And I'm so happy that we got there. We did it. Like we said the end for now. And I'm so happy with where it ended for my writing, and that we both freaking finished. And we were like neck and neck at the end, which I was like, I got really nervous at the end. I got real humble. And I was like, if she wins, it's fine. You know, it's for both of us. This is great. But no, I was like, I'm gonna freaking win.
I'm so glad. Honestly, I'm glad you won, because I knew your edits were coming, and I was like, I can't imagine having to juggle like those kinds of fucking letters when they come. They're like scramble your brains, and the last thing you want is to be trying to like push out something creative when edits are coming. And I think like what you said before, it's like you gave me chills. I can't remember exactly what, you know, when you have the moment,
must not have been that good then. It wasn't that good.
It was just like, there's all these moments that like can crush you through this, you know, and that's what you're talking about, the joy, like the things that kind of steal your joy through this process, the hard parts, and that how hard it can be to like recapture your joy with writing, but that if you don't have it, it is, I think it's like crucial to pivot and find it again. And if it's not joy, the fire, the passion, like you might be writing something darker and like, you know, that you're not necessarily feeling like lit AF as you write like something darker, but that passion, that fire, if it's not there, if it's been crushed by querying or edit letters or whatever, I think that's where writer's block comes in, you know. And I just think if you can't find that joy again, it can be so crushing. For the third time she says crushing. Do you get what I mean? Like, if there's anything that I feel like I learned from our draft race, it was that, just to recapture my joy. Yeah.
I know it. I feel good. Like, I remember, you know, it was it brought me back to, okay, this is why, you know. And I feel like, not that I haven't been enjoying myself and like loving all the stuff that's been going on, because it's all been great, but when it comes to like going back to just why, like the heart of it, which is writing, you know, I feel like I was missing that thing, and just having fun again. Just
I totally get it. And I've been talking with Jess Para, which we're going to come back to in a second, about this, about how dreams become deadlines, you know, and like, and I think that that's kind of what we're touching on here, that like there is a point where it turns into work, and you have to find but because it's creative work, if you can't find a way to like keep that fire stoked, to keep going through those pinch points, like literally, I think that's one of the most important things to foster the whole way through, because there's going to be rejections, there's going to be like the edit letters that scramble your brain, whatever, like there's going to be books that don't sell, there's going to be, I mean, touch wood, that's never ours. Right. But yeah, it's a job like any other. It's not like once you get to this point where you are like, it's going to be work now. So like sometimes I guess holding on to that can be hard.
Absolutely. And so you have to find these little nuggets of joy. And so, like I got my edit letter. Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. It's all a blur. But like, as soon as I knew it was coming, but as soon as I saw it, the dread I felt was like astronomical. I was thinking, oh, here it comes. You know, like I worked so hard. I just, I was so proud of this. Here it comes. And then I had to stop and be like, no, bitch. Remember, like, you worked hard. You loved what you wrote. Whatever is going to come is because they want to make it better. And so let's turn this into, oh, woe is me, into like, this is a new fun challenge to get it better. And so I opened the email and I started reading the letter, and I was just like, I got teary-eyed, because my original edit letter was like 10 pages, 9-10 pages. And this one was 5, but the first page and the last half page was all the nice things, all the things that they loved about it. And so I was just like, I was just, okay, I did it. And it's not that like it's done, obviously. It's not that it's perfect, but I got what they were asking for. And I was able to pivot and think about it and not get down about it and work my ass off. And a lot of that, honestly, is learning from Pitch Wars, because we had to do that. And I don't think I would have known how to do that if we didn't have Pitch Wars.
Right.
I would have never known. I mean, you get, an edit letter from your agent, but I didn't, when you get an editor, it's so much more, right? And so I guess depending on who your agent is and how like hands-on they are, but I wouldn't have known. And so I went into it with that same mentality. I was like, okay, I'm working with Margie Houston again. I've got this. And it like paid off. And I have things to work on, like digging deeper, which I was like, oh, okay, I'm excited about, because I can do it. I know I can do it. And I can do it. I know I can. And I'm really excited, because it's gonna be a really fun book.
Yes. Don't say it in the quiet voice. Say it in the loud voice. It's going to be a fucking epic book, Angela Montoya. It already was. And with every polish, it goes from being the diamond in the dirt to the one on the engagement ring, baby. Like, it is like, I'm so glad that that's how you're feeling, because you've done all this work and it is good. It was good. It's going to be even better, And I think it's like what we've talked about before, that gap between what's actually like in your first draft and what's on a shelf or what's in a movie. The amount of revisions and the number of hands that has touched that work to get there. I think that's half the like being able to do what you're doing is part of the process, I think, of being like a successful author, taking that initial overwhelm and just being like, no, I can do this. I've got this. I'm gonna like make gold out of this. You've done it, baby.
Shit. No, I honestly, like, I feel almost nostalgic of like when I first started writing and the first critiques I would get and how much it gutted me every time. And now I'm getting them and I'm like, yes, okay, fine, sure. Hurts a little, but it's good. I think like you have to grow.
Yeah.
Because it really does gut you so much, so hard. But it's like almost like querying too. It's those no's, it's those change this. It's all of those things that build you up so that when something big does happen, you're ready. Because I honestly could not have gone through these revisions had I not had so many no's, had so many, you need to work on this, change this, think of this, I wouldn't have been able to. And so every single no is just a pivot, right? It's just taking you in a different direction and making you better. And so
I just adore you. I'm so emotional today. I got chills and I'm on the verge of tears again. I was so beautiful. And like, I've been thinking about this a lot because as you know, I got a rejection this week from an agent who had had my manuscript for ages. And I had one emo day. I let myself have this one. I was like, I'm allowed, like I'm pretty good at picking myself up. But I think when you have like a long wait, it's kind of like and we talked about this with Susan, like it could be nothing or it could be everything.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? That is this career. And that's exactly what you're saying. That experience is getting me ready for the next part, because it's just like that all the way. Like I have friends who like experience that, like after having multiple books out and like having to then wait for years for something else to happen after having that initial success. And like, so when you come to that point, if you don't have this kind of, that this is just what the industry is like, that would just crush you. And you would think you failed maybe. Do you know what I mean? But it's just like, honestly, and I'm so grateful for our podcast, because the more we network and the more we talk, I just remind myself every time, like I had my down day, but honestly, even halfway through that day, I was like, I'm not actually like heartbroken by this. Like it was the initial release of I've had this out for 9 months. This one felt close, baby. It felt close. And I adore the agent and I will respect her always, And to be honest, I feel like having that, I had a few manuscripts out for like a long time. And as I reflect on it now, even though it can be like really hard getting a no after a long time, as I reflect on it now, I'm so grateful actually that I had those out for that long, because when they were out, I was in a bad place with my writing mentally. And having those out at that point, I was like, no, you check yourself. You've got manuscripts out with dream agents. There's nothing to cry about. Get your shit together. And when I actually got the no's, I was like, yeah, love her. It just wasn't a fit. Okay, let's keep going, pivot, and it's such a nice mindset to be in, and so different to, like you said, that early mindset where we're so like fragile and any no feels like the end of the world. And any feedback feels like, oh, how could they say that? I'm not a bit ranty, sorry.
No, I think we both needed to talk today. And I think Susan Lee really just revved us up with her magic. And also we have amazing news from one of our dearest, most amazing, fantastic cat aficionado.
Parrot queen of macaws and biting monkeys. Our beautiful, glorious momager, Jessica Para, has announced today, well, kind of yesterday, today, her incredible book deal. And I just I feel like a proud auntie. I don't know if I'm allowed to feel that way, but I do, because she's just she's such a precious member of this community. And honestly, she's one of those people who, because I just think at every point we all have those days, and I'm trying to honor those moments when the imposter syndrome creeps in, have my moment and check it. It's like catching it though, not letting yourself wallow. But she's really the person who will check you and just be like, like she won't let you wallow. And God, I love her for it. It's just kind of like, yeah, but I know you've got it. So just fucking keep working, do another revision, so I just could not be more happy for her to have this news finally out and scream it from the rooftops.
I know it. I know. We've known, it feels like a year.
I know.
It has been a year, but she finally gets to announce it, and it's just so good. Honestly, Jessica Para, I know this is going to sound weird, but she reminds me of my grandpa. Let me explain. So
no, I love it already.
Yeah. So my grandpa was this man that you always wanted to have his respect, because it wasn't that he was hard on you, but he always saw that potential, and he always wanted that potential, and he would say whatever he had to say to get it out of you. And to me, Para is that person that when she says something, you're like, Okay, yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm waiting to hear what Jessica Parra has to say. I need her affirmation. I need her like approval, because she is just that person. And she's kind of not necessarily so much on social media. And so I feel like we have to shout about her excellence even harder, because she is that person, and her book is going to soar. And so congratulations to our mom.
And you made me well up again, because I just think that it was on the money, that explanation of her. There are just some people in this life, and they want other people to shine so much. It just, at every opportunity, somebody like her looks for ways to make their fellow human shine. And it is such a rare and beautiful quality of humanity that we could stand to see more of. And she just has that in spades. Like, at every point, she's like, do this, make a podcast, do another revision, like go ask that person to be on the show, like whatever. And every second of that is like, she just wants you to shine and live your best life. And I just adore her for it. And I cannot wait. Her book is just a masterpiece. I just can already see the Netflix series right now.
Yeah.
To me right now, it's delicious. I will gobble it up in one sitting. So yeah, congratulations, our beautiful Jessica Parra. We are cheering you on. We're going to be cheering you on always. We're going to have you on so we can scream about it together. And yeah, exciting times.
I know, she was our first guest, so
she was too.
Yeah, so I know. So we're gonna have to have her back on and just celebrate, because she's our everything. Well, let's get into someone else that is magic as well, which is Susan Lee. She is
glorious and incredible. I just can't wait. Well, let's get right into her bio.
Yeah.
Susan Lee has had a lifetime of careers, from bartender to network engineer to HR executive at some of today's most successful companies. But one thing has always been clear throughout. She was born to be a storyteller, and she has channeled her myriad of experiences into her writing of lighthearted, quirky novels about the oft-times hilarious human condition and love, always love. She currently lives in Southern California, fighting her inner New Yorker from breaking free too often, with a pack of 3 feisty chihuahuas and a too hardy obsession with K-pop and K-dramas. That's just like the best bio in the world. I wish I asked her about her 3 chihuahuas. That's why she was so understanding when I said I was running a couple minutes late because Goose wouldn't poop.
Yeah, she's like been there. Been there many times.
3 little chihuahuas. I bet they're like so fussy about their poop times.
Yeah, chihuahuas are known for their being fussy about pooping.
That's a fact. Don't check it, but that's a fact.
Yeah, chihuahuas are known fussy poopers for sure.
Yes, and I just can't wait for her book, which I have been like Google stalking for a while now, and it's just my next K-drama in a book, right? Like
yeah. Let's bring her on.
Bring her on.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm trying to find better lighting.
Please don't apologize. I was running a bit late because my little dog would not poop. And if I can't get her to go before the podcast, she's like terrible. She's like scratching herself in the corner, eating her paws. I'm just like, I had to have it happen.
That's fine. They almost didn't let me check in. I'm like, well, I'm going to do a podcast right here in your lobby. And if you don't mind that, then
let me in.
Yeah, but they checked me in.
Are you at Comic-Con right now?
I'm at Comic-Con. I live in San Diego, but because it's kind of impossible to get down here in the Comic-Con area, I just decided to get a hotel for the night. So yeah.
How fun. I've always like wanted to go, but I wouldn't even know where to start or what to do, but it's so fun.
It's massive. It's very impressive. I will say it's super organized for them, like the sheer scale of what it is. But I have been to many a BTS concert recently, and waiting in those lines has made me immune to any other line moving forward ever. So of all the greatness that BTS has given me, one of those things is also preparing me for Comic-Con, apparently. So
Oh my goodness. Can we just stop and talk about that for a moment? Because
okay.
hashtag army.
Oh my God, really? I had no idea.
Yeah. Oh my
Well,
God.
let's throw the script out the window, because this is what we're going to be talking about now.
Look, I have to confess, I was a late bloomer. I started with my K-drama obsession and I was late to K-pop for some reason, but BTS like basically got me through all our lockdowns. It's like all I listened to when we were in lockdown, and it just kept me sane, and I'm just obsessed.
Yeah. This is the thing about like the whole K-pop industry, and what is kind of unique compared to like Western artists is that in Korea, it's kind of historical and expected to create content all the time, and content in the sense that like reality shows, variety shows, where the consumer and the listener feels they know these artists better than, you know, like other people, other famous people. And having that kind of connection is what actually creates this deep loyalty and fandom, because we feel like we know them because they've shown us sides to them, you know. And so when you're new to a fandom, just the a sheer amount of content that you can consume, which is perfect when we were all during lockdown. Yeah, I mean, the size of ARMY globally has grown. It's crazy. And across K-pop, most of these other bands too that came after BTS now have huge fandoms too. Because yeah, I think K-pop is really, it is geared towards people who want to be part of a fandom, not just like an artist, you know. So
Yes.
That makes sense. It feels like K-pop is a lifestyle.
yes,
It's not just fandom. It is a
very
lifestyle.
true. Yes, very true. And it's like interesting. I mean, I have an obsessive personality. So if I'm into something, I'm going in. Like I am like, I have purple Nike Air Jordans that I wore to the concert. But I was never really into other, like I used to really love like sports teams and stuff like that. But I never was really into fandoms. Like I didn't watch Teen Wolf or Supernatural, and I wasn't Twilight. I really wasn't into that. So actually Comic-Con is kind of mind blowing to me, because people are like, but I just keep thinking, I get you dudes. I get you, because I'm in BTS and it's very similar, you know, so.
I love that. Respect to all. Respect
Yes.
to all fandoms. But there is something very special about, is it the ARMY? Is that what the
Uh-huh.
And I'm here for it. I love it. I saw, like, I wouldn't call myself part of the ARMY. I'm not an expert, but I appreciate, because I didn't know or see or anything like that until one day I saw them on Saturday Night Live, and I stopped what I was doing because I just couldn't look away. I mean, everything about like the way they dance, everything was fucking fire. So I feel it. And well, we have to move on to K-dramas now.
Okay.
Because I am recently now a super fan.
My K-drama heart is so full. It is overflowing right now. This is news that both of you are K-drama watchers.
Really?
I am just
this
delighted.
Is like
I'm tickled.
half of what we talk about on the podcast.
Oh my God.
But we do, Melanie has turned me on to K-dramas. And I could not, I think it is the writing, the angst, the sheer beauty and like cinematography, like everything is perfect. And it takes 5 billion episodes, an hour long each, to get to the kiss, but I don't care. I just want that little kiss.
I think what's, you know, interesting about K-dramas, number one, if you're a writer and you watch K-dramas, it's like, it is just, you know, it is masterful storytelling. And like the really good K-dramas, the ones that are just get really people very obsessive, is because every episode is escalating conflict. Like I think about this all the time. I'm like, oh, you know, most of my books, I have very little plot. It's all just vibes, but I'm just like, up the conflict. We need more conflict because I'm used to that. And also like one of the things that I tend to do when I write is I do these kind of clear-cut chapter endings, which is like every chapter ending feels like a little bit of a cliffhanger. And I'm like, that's because I'm used to K-dramas. Every episode ends in a thing that you're just like, oh, and then the next episode begins at that same like a half step back to replay it and then move forward. And it's like, I didn't realize how much like K-dramas had informed how I tell story, but yes, 100%. So, and I think it's actually why so many authors have really kind of gotten into it, because it's, whether we know it or not, I think it's making us all better storytellers.
I 100%. And like literally, I always say every time I finish a new K-drama that I just gobbled up, I'm just like, this is writing goals.
Yeah.
This level of emotion, this level of yearning, like what this made me feel. I saw him in that sweater and I Googled how much it was because I wanted to wear his sweater. Like there's something about it that is so immersive and so masterful. And yeah, like I found it a couple of years ago and I've never looked back.
Oh,
and like, honestly,
this.
I just am obsessed. So we have to ask, what is your favorite?
Okay. So this is like, this question makes me laugh because it's like asking people your favorite book and they don't tell you the genre. Like one of the things that really just like, it's my personal pet peeve and it's only because I'm a snob. But on Twitter, like people will say, I just finished Crash Landing on You. What should I watch next? And people are like throwing 100 different K-dramas and none of them are like Crash Landing on You. And I'm like, my dudes, like if someone says they finished Book Lovers by Emily Henry, you don't then just say, oh, you've got to read A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's like a different book, you know what I mean? So I get a little like, oosh. But if I were to say like overall, one that it will always stick with me, I can rewatch all the time, I'll think about it a lot, and I hate to be so cliche, but it's definitely Crash Landing on You. It's like, because also I'm like all about the romance, so that is just the like, I just cried, I laughed, there's found family, there's political intrigue, there's so much conflict and tension, and yeah, I love it. And but I also like top 3 would also be Goblin. Goblin is the bromance, like nothing beats that bromance. And I'll touch on something in just a second. And actually more recently, one that has really stuck with me, it was a very quiet K-drama, but like I said, I'm a romance reader. Our Beloved Summer, I think, is chef's kiss, romantic beats, romantic tension. So
okay. Yeah, write that down. I need to watch.
It's like quieter, but it's basically like enemies to lovers to enemies to lovers. Like it's like it goes over multiple 10 years time, but oh, it's just so delightful. And it's one of those stories where we as an audience all know, idiots, get yourselves to, you love each other, and they even know, and they just resist it. And it's like, that's what romance is. Every beat is, you've got to keep them apart, even though we're dying for them to get together and they're dying to get together. So love it. But one thing I did want to touch on, and this is one thing that I always wish I feel lacks in books that K-dramas offers us, is the soundtracks, like the music, the way that music creates and kind of like manipulates the emotions. Oh, I just cannot. So anyways, those 3 ones have some of the best soundtracks in my opinion.
Yes.
So,
I listened to the soundtracks after when it was really good. I have it playing after, and then I'll like get to that one song and I'm like,
I know.
Stop it.
I know, I feel this deeply.
But I get what you mean about the kind of quiet power that some of them have, because I felt like that with Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha. The story wasn't maybe as like outlandish as some or whatever, but those little quietly profound human moments, it's like it's what we live with. And maybe not, I think what it is not every little thing will relate to you, but every now and then something happens, you're like, I do that, I think that way, I process that way. And it's so beautiful and humanizing that way.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that K-dramas do is there's a formula, and Koreans we like tradition. We like things like we want to know, it's like what to expect. And so like in K-dramas, you're always going to have kind of like, I passed by you once when we were kids, like it's raining. Oh, I forgot my umbrella, and here he comes with the umbrella.
Yeah.
And the kiss on the 8th episode, then all things is going to go to shit from there. It's like they're just as it's an expectation. There's also this one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, but it's when the guy gets hit by a car and he's levitating in the air. It's like in like 5 or 6 of them right now. So I mean, these are things that we expect in K-dramas, and something about that, this is much like, going back to romance novels. It's why romance readers love tropes, is because we do love this kind of like take on the familiar that is going to incite the emotion, and so yeah, that's why I love the connection between the two. What are some of your favorites? What are some of your recent favorites?
Well, I just watched Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha, and so all of it, like, remember they met when they were little, and it was like a little passing thing. I was like, oh,
I love all of that.
Yeah, it killed me, and I just couldn't get enough of all these little coincidences that like hit right at the end, and you're like, oh, this is masterful. Like, this is beautiful. And I'm laughing because at least once a series, someone's getting hit by a car. And
it's
so true. So true. I'm so glad you brought up Goblin and you said Goblin, because it's just one of the best pieces of entertainment ever. Like, in my mind, the way everything was melded together and the emotion and the humor, and it's literally, that's definitely in the top. I also have such a soft spot for Bride of Habeck and Tales of the Nine-Tailed. Love a bit of fantasy.
I was gonna say
yeah.
love.
Yeah, Bride of Habeck was the first one Melanie turned me on to.
Really?
And I was done. After that, I was like, this is it. Life has changed. I couldn't do anything. I had to watch the whole show. And my daughter too. And we just like gobbled it up. It was so good.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
Can't get enough. But let's bring it back to you.
Yeah. Okay.
We're here. I know we will lose the entire 45 minutes to K-drama, K-pop. But let's bring it to you and like, let's go back to where it all started for you on your writing journey.
Yes. So I have not been doing this very long. I actually, I'm in my 40s. I have had I think I can say this with all confidence, I've had a very successful career. So I was working in technology startups, and I was the head of HR, chief people officer for multiple startups. So I was at a few, and then I ended up at Warby Parker, and I was at Spotify. And then my last gig was at a kind of the design and marketing firm for Apple. So I had worked this whole career and being around people and having just lots of experiences interacting with people. And I think I just kind of tucked a lot of those stories away in my head. And then I think it was, I started writing around 2017, but 2018 was when I finished my first novel, first manuscript. And I entered into Pitch Wars in 2018 and was selected by Gloria Chow. She was for American Panda fame. She was an incredible mentor and now incredible friend. And I got my first agent from the showcase in 2019, went on sub. And a year later, that story that kind of was really buzzy in Pitch Wars and everything was still on sub. So, but during that time, I wrote a second novel. And what had ultimately happened is my father had passed away very suddenly, kind of within 3 months from being diagnosed with stomach cancer. He'd passed, and I was in this place of, it was just right around the summer of 2019 where I was on sub, but I had to do something. I had to work on something else. And, they always tell you to write the weight. And, but I needed some outlet to find joy. So I decided to just write kind of just the zaniest rom-com I could think of, and so I wrote that, and then ended up parting ways with my agent in 2020 and got my second agent. My agent now is Taylor Haggerty at Root Literary, who is truly my dream. I'm a romance reader and writer, and she's kind of like the perfect agent for that. We went on sub and sold and went to auction, and yeah, and sold to Ingard. And now my book comes out. We sold in October of 2020, and my book comes out almost 2 years later, September 2022. So that's my journey. It's kind of, not a long, grindy one. I'm not the type of author, and I kind of hate this for myself, but I'm not the type of author that wanted to be an author my whole life. Like, I didn't even read that much as a kid. My sister was a prolific reader. I didn't want to do anything my sister did. So she's an older sister. So I wasn't a big reader and never thought about writing. And it wasn't until probably about, maybe 10 years ago. So later in my life, in my 30s, I started reading, I found romance novels and started just reading a ton of them, but never wanted to write them because I didn't want to ruin the reading experience for myself. And I just didn't even think, like, who am I to think that I could write a book? But I think timing just kind of worked out, where, especially with my first novel back in 2018, I'm like, I'm gonna try this. I've got some like wackadoodle stories that I could tell, and I would love to see more representation in the industry and in books. Yeah, so I went for it, and that's kind of where we are now. So I'm not a studied writer. I'm not a practiced writer either. I'm very new to this. I call myself a lucky writer, and I'll take it though. Yeah, I don't mind that right now.
Totally. But I noticed in your bio, you said that you've always been a storyteller. And I think that that's something where, even if you didn't necessarily find writing straight away, I was reflecting on this the other day. Like, I think even like way back into primary school, I loved to entertain. I love to make my friends laugh, like in these small ways. So what does that look like for you? Like, how?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, my dad was an electrical engineer, and he had, back in the day, this is really dating myself, but in our garage, we would have like these 10 key calculators, and we'd have electronic typewriters and TVs, tube TVs, and that he would like fix and play around with. And so my best friend and I, her name was Danielle, her last name was Winkler, and we created Winkley Realty. So we created a realtor company where we would like use the 10 key, of course, to decide how much stuff was going to cost. And I mean, we just had very active imaginations. Like, we were a synchronized swimming team in her backyard during the Olympics. We were, we would take these candies called dinosaur eggs, and we would bury them. And like, so we had very active imaginations. And what was interesting is, one of the things in this kind of publication journey is there's a lot of little things in the marketing side that your team will ask you to do. And one of the things that they asked me to do was write a letter to independent bookshops, to tell them about my book. And they'd given me some examples, and all these examples were people who were like talking about these really beautifully romantic versions of themselves growing up in these, like, how these indies saved them. And I'm like, I didn't read as a kid. I didn't read, namely because every book, no matter what genre, felt like a fantasy to me, because it wasn't me on that page, and so, but bookstores for me, the one by my house had stickers, and it had notebooks and colorful pens, and I used to just go in, and like, that would help me create stories in my head, those things. So yeah, so I think that had also helped me in my career in human resources, because people would come to me and tell me like what's going on, and I could help them communicate kind of either their frustrations or how life has been difficult and how that's impacting their job, because we would use our words, we'd put words to what they were feeling and frustrated with, and I would help managers on how to give feedback. And that was all like crafting these stories, that ways of communicating to people so that people could get it, and yeah, so I think my life has kind of always been centered around that.
I love that. And now here you are coming out your debut novel, Soulmates. When I saw the cover, when I met you at the book signing for Kristen Dwyer, I saw your book cover. Somebody had it in their hand, and I was like, what is this? And I think there was an arc or something. And immediately I knew, and we had chatted just for a second, and I was like, oh, I have to tell Melanie, I have to get you on the show. We have to talk about this book. We all need it in our hands. So can you tell us a little bit about Soulmates?
Yes. I'm very bad at this, which all authors say that, but I really should be better at this. I like to talk tropes. So it is a childhood best friends to enemies to lovers story. It's a YA rom-com. It's about a girl named Hannah. She lives in San Diego. She has abandonment issues. People in her life have kind of moved away. And now we open the book finding her with her non-Korean boyfriend, who breaks up with her because they don't have anything in common because she doesn't like K-dramas and K-pop. So she's like, I'm sorry. My whole life I've been trying not to get into like be too Korean at school, and I'm dating this hot white guy, and all of a sudden he says to me that we don't have anything in common because he's into all of these things. And so she determines that she's going to get him back. But in all of this, her childhood best friend comes back. He moved away and she considered him abandoning her. So they kind of had a falling out. He moves away. He comes back. He moves away to Korea, of all places. And they agreed they weren't really Korean when they were growing up. And he comes back and he is now a famous K-drama star and the hottest K-drama in Korea. So she feels very betrayed by all of this. It's like everything we all agreed on what it means to be Korean American or not, like everyone's kind of turned their backs on the expectations for her. So, and he on the flip side is, struggling with fame and the expectation of a K-drama actor. And so he comes to San Diego for the summer with his family and has a bucket list of stuff he wants to do, and he blackmails her into helping him. And so there's a lot of reconciling, there's forgiveness, friendship, family. I think it's funny to continue to alliterate with these F words, but yeah. And I think it's a very dear story. I had set out to write a rom-com. I just wanted to write a romance. I think some of these other things felt like to me an inside joke to myself, like, aha, this white guy likes K-pop and she doesn't, and but ultimately, without intending to, it became a story about identity. And I think it's interesting. I'm sorry to keep rambling about this, but I think what's interesting is right now, the way the world is, like, identity is such an interesting construct to me, because 5 years ago, we were all saying we want to label ourselves so that we can be recognized. I want, it's like we want to be able to say, yeah, we have a place. So here's how we label ourselves. And today it's like this very odd thing to have the world love BTS and at the same time to have Asians being pushed into the New York subway. It's like, I don't understand how this kind of deep passions on both sides can exist in the same world, and sometimes possibly from the same people, and so it is, this book, as I was writing it, wasn't intended to talk about these things, but I clearly was going through these things myself. And taking it back to BTS, I wasn't a fan when I first started writing this book. This was actually making fun of fans. And as I started writing this book, they always say you find BTS when you need them the most. And I started to recognize what they're about. And I used to be embarrassed of them as a Korean, and now like just the amount of pride I have being Korean and them be representing Korea. All of this was like happened in the course of the 2 years that this book was coming out. Like I found myself in this book in my 40s. I went back to Korea for the first time in 20 years. And all of this was kind of like because of the story. And the story turned. By the time we finished edits, it was much more about like celebrating being able to embrace things that, come out of Korea, no matter who you are, so yeah.
I got chills just listening to you, honestly. Well, there's something so beautiful about writing, and it does feel like you write the things that you didn't realize you were kind of battling, and to feel and hear that you have this full circle moment of just kind of acceptance, and not just acceptance, but like also celebrating your culture and all these amazing things that have come from it. It's just so beautiful. And I had chills listening.
Thank you. That's really nice. I was able to take my book to the BTS concert. So I took a picture. I also took it to Korea with me this last time. I took my ARC and like, I was that person. I carried it around. I took a picture of it everywhere. I kind of been going through my own transformation. And I think part of this comes from the fact that, and I started writing this when my father had passed, and all of my ties to my Korean identity are at home. Like I eat Korean food at home. My parents watch K-dramas at home. Like I didn't do that at school or in the workplace or any of that stuff, you know? And when my father passed, I think a part of me was like, am I gonna lose this one thread to a part of myself that I personally didn't get to choose? You know, it's like, and I think maybe that's what triggered me actively trying to understand what my Koreanness means to me. And it all came about in a time when the world started thinking, hey, you know, you look a certain way, so you started this whole thing, you know, like you started this pandemic. And so I just, it's so interesting how life happens this way when so many things kind of come to a head. And yeah, and thankfully it's been a really great journey for me.
Ooh,
That's
makes
so
me happy.
beautiful. Like I literally did tear up during your speech because it's so wonderful to hear, because there is like, you know, like there's a lot of shit out there, and it's just so beautiful to hear the flip side, and you know that you were able to find your love for that again. And like that's so powerful, and I bet that's going to touch so many people who maybe felt like, I mean, I remember like kind of, it's not the same, but like feeling like, because my background's Croatian, and like feeling like really tamp that down as much as possible and be as Aussie as possible when I was at school, and like, you know, do the Aussie things, listen to the same music. And yeah, like it's kind of, as much hurt and pain as there is in the world, it's so beautiful to see that like there's also so many stories of people just shining and like claiming who we are, like without like letting other people influence that. And whatever that means to you, it might not be, for some people, doing that. For some people, it might be embracing, I don't know, death metal or whatever it is. Something that
I hope
like,
so.
that they like resisted at some
Yeah,
time,
yes.
that was like not allowed, or like, yeah. So it's just, thank you for sharing that. It was really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I want to ask, what has been the hardest part for you throughout this journey in this writing this book, or just once you started writing?
I think there's just so much advice out there, isn't there? There's so much advice. It's like interesting because, you know, I've queried twice. So my second time querying, I threw every bit of every rule that I followed the first time querying, I just threw it out the door. I just was like, at this point, does it even matter? You know, like when things don't make sense to me, I tend to rebel. Like I just am really like that, you know? So yeah. So I think there's so much information out there, and I think that's hard to navigate. Like, how do you trust your gut and you want to do the right thing? But I think the other thing is there's just not a lot of people of color within publishing. So, you know, you're either the token or you're the one that's rejected because someone else has already taken that spot, or you're the author in the position where your copy editor sends you a bunch of microaggressions and you're just like, you know, I don't want to have to explain myself to you, you know? And so I think every step has been the hardest, to be honest. Right now, the hardest is writing book 2. I'm really struggling. I've had 3 deadline extensions. It's hard. And it's hard because there's no real litmus for what success is. We don't know how many books sold means success. We don't know if deadlines really mean success. We don't know, you know? And so I think that has been hard. I come from HR where there are kind of like, hey, this is what it means to do your job well, you know, if we manage well. And we don't really have that in publishing. So that kind of grayness has been difficult for me to navigate, to be honest.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, is just kind of figuring out what success means for you, because you're right, in this industry there isn't that thing, or if there is that thing, does that really matter to you? You know, it's like, and it's always shifting, right? So I want to get a book deal, okay, I got that, so now what's the next thing? And it's like constantly trying to figure out what success is. And
there's a lot out of your control, and that really bugs me. Like that really irritates me. So, and there's not an equal footing, you know, other authors get different things than you do. And so all of that is just like, it's too much ambiguity for me sometimes. And just like, there's just very nebulous here. So yeah.
And nobody tells you how to do it. You know, it's like you get into this weird world, and nobody really explains this is how it's supposed to work, because it doesn't work the same for everyone or anybody. So there really isn't a way. So yeah, it's wonky.
It's wonky.
And I'm like, I feel like that out of everything, that's the one thing that like I'm trying to grow, is my ability to embrace the unpredictable side of it, because it's literally like nothing and then everything, you know, and you kind of have to be ready to pivot out of like the complete quiet of nothing happening to suddenly everything is upon you at once. And that really does require a special kind of person, and like a special,
and you can't lose yourself in it either, you know. That's the thing. It's interesting when we talk about debuts, and like, you know, it's been a fun year, like just watching people debut, but I always say that debut kind of brings out the worst of what already exists in people. So if you're very insecure, it makes you even more so. If you're a narcissist, you are you know, like we cannot deal with you, you know. It's like, so whatever you have in you, it kind of like magnifies that. But I think what's important is that like people don't tend to be very self-aware of that. And so I think the best part is kind of just trying to figure out who am I bringing to this very topsy-turvy industry and career, and then how do I manage that? Because that's what I can control. I can manage myself, you know, and I think that's important.
That's it. I got chills again, because I feel like I feel that so hard, because there really is so much we cannot control, but you can control how you take things and what you put into yourself and put out into the world. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's a weird, you're like, am I doing enough? Am I posting enough? Am I doing all the things? And you're like letting everything out, but not taking in enough. And so that's kind of what I feel like I'm dealing with right now. And so, you know, just hearing that it's all just part of this, like I said, this wonky thing we're going through, but just taking a breath.
Take a breath. I mean, so look, I'm mindful of the time. I'm watching this timer time down, but I do want to say the one thing is, like, as I'm getting closer to my pub date, the one thing I have sworn to myself is I am going to have the time of my life. So if something is not bringing me joy, if I'm stressed out, like for instance, we were trying to schedule one of our launch events in New York, and a couple of bookstores came back and weren't able to do it. And I was feeling rejection, and I was like, you know what? Like, I don't want this. I want to feel joy about this. And a bookstore actually came through, and I'm super excited, but I just wanted to be a party. I want to have a good ass time for myself. I want my friends to have fun. I want readers to have fun. I want to throw a big party. My friend jokes, because she's like, you're basically throwing like your own wedding for your book. I'm like, exactly. Like, I'm having a rehearsal dinner beforehand. It's like, so, I mean, I want to have fun, because at the end of the day, this industry and career, there's a lot to bring you down. And so I'm gonna choose joy in this. So especially in my pub date, I'm gonna choose some joy. So
I just love you. You gave me chills again, and seriously, but that is everything. And like, I don't know why we're programmed with like this tall poppy thing, where when you finally achieve some kind of success, a lot of times it's like, oh, well, I better not shine too bright now. I better not. No, fuck that. Have your wedding for your book, because you worked so bloody hard, and like, you've earned it. And I fully condone, like, chase any feeling that's going to make you feel good at this time, because you've been slaving away getting this done this whole time, and now's your time to enjoy it. So just enjoy it, baby. And I just love
Thank you.
that in tandem.
That's all I got. It's all I got.
Just thank you so much for coming on today. Our time has just evaporated. We're going to have you on again. And just have any parting words for any listeners, writers?
Yeah, so, you know, look, I'm an old curmudgeon. I've lived a life. So my biggest, I think, advice to people, number one, is not to be like, you know, I've changed my career multiple times through the course of my life. And I think that's okay. Like, if you figure out ways to embrace pivoting, like especially in your writing and your careers and how you want to do things, where you write, are you a pantser, plotter, any pivot, you know, it's like, try new things. And I think at the end, just so simple and maybe too cliche, but just, if this is not fun, there's so much part of this, process that is even more like just really draining. So where you can, you just have to celebrate and have joy. And, sometimes that's just you and a glass of wine in the dark at home. But like, have some joy. And yeah, that's my best advice. Choose joy. So, and watch K-drama.
Thank you.
Yes. I feel like
And watch K-drama.
No, I condone this message. I feel like every writer should be watching K-drama. It is literally the best tool.
Yeah.
Because like, fuck the books. I'm just gonna say the books. Every time I get a book about writing.
This is between us, but every book I write, I'm literally going to steal a K-drama idea. I'm literally writing K-drama beats. It's like, come on.
No, I mean the books about writing, like how to write.
Yeah.
They don't help me. I can never get through them. I never want to read them. Give me
like, it works for you. Good for you. Works for you. Doesn't work for me.
Fuck them books.
Yes.
Watch K-drama.
I should have clarified before I just launched into that.
But not all books, because everybody needs to read Soulmates.
Not all books. Soulmates coming September 2020.
I can't wait. Honestly, I cannot wait to read your book.
Thank you.
And just watch your career like explode.
Oh, I feel the same way for both of you. So I'm very excited. So
thank you. I love what you say. Honestly, just bring the joy. And thank you for bringing joy into our life today.
Exactly.
I feel like it could breathe a little bit more.
Aww.
This episode.
Well, I love this podcast, so keep doing it and keep on with your writing. I'm so excited for both of you too and your futures too. And we'll keep meeting back here. So
yeah. You know what I feel like this whole episode was? It's that when you let yourself feel joy, it's that quote, you give others permission to feel it.
Yeah, I love that.
Brought on the show today. So thank you. It's gonna cut us off. We will see you again. I just know it.
We love you, Susan. Thank you. You are now officially part of the Pub Persuasion family.
I love that. Love it.